My guest, Lawrence White, professor at the NYU Stern School of Business. Larry White, good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
All right, so you're just flying in from Oklahoma. You had a little time to ponder the testimony of Paul Volcker. Is he making any sense? I mean, are the rules and regulations that he is proposing, is this window dressing or is this for real?
I think it's window dressing. I fear it may end up being for real. It's the wrong solution to not a problem. It is not proprietary trading that got us into difficulty and the financial crisis. It is not private equity funds that got us into difficulty. It is not hedge funds that got us into difficulty. And those are the things that Mr. Volcker wants to try to cordon off.
That sounds like a trifecta there, right? I mean, we're talking about hedge funds, private equity, and prop trading. So why is he going?
Or a hat trick.
Or a hat trick. So why is he going in this direction?
I can't figure. Well, he's got a view of depository institutions, and arguably things like proprietary trading, although it didn't cause a problem, are not appropriate for depository institutions. What he's ignoring is the fact that we had 5 large investment banks, 3 of them with trillion-dollar balance sheets, one with $600 billion, one with $400 billion, that got into trouble because they invested in stinky assets and they didn't have enough capital. And
that sounds pretty simple. I mean, that doesn't sound very complicated.
It is simple. It isn't complicated. What you need is more capital for large financial institutions generally, and the idea of the Obama administration a week earlier, which was put a 15 basis point, 0.15% tax on the non-deposit liabilities of large banks. That makes perfectly good sense. That encourages them to shrink. That gets some money back for the implicit insurance that's being provided to those set of creditors. That makes sense. This stuff that Mr. Volcker is pushing, that trifecta, doesn't make sense. He does like the idea of a resolution authority for these large financial institutions. That's very good. And he certainly does recognize that more capital is necessary. But these other 3 things, it's a sideshow. It's not really what's needed.
All right, let's just hold this sort of debate on whether the Volcker rules are good or bad. Let's hold that in abeyance right now. What about the timing of the introduction of these proposals? Because, you know, the Congress has its own kind of lifespan, and they have been debating financial rules and regulations. They've gone back and forth to the House. You had Chris Dodd. He's the head of the banking committee. Been trying to write something that the Republicans can also sign off on. And now you get the Obama administration coming in almost at the, as many members have said, at the last minute. Is this really going to derail financial regulation in all of its glory?
Well, you never know. You know, that it isn't over till it's over. I fear that this does end up being a diversion. It distracts the senators, makes it harder for them to focus on the things that are really important. It feels like this was a kick the banks type of populist effort, along with the 15 basis point tax. But the 15 basis point tax was a good idea. This one is just a diversion.
Larry White, last question for you. If this isn't a diversion, what can we expect, let's say, in the coming weeks? What do we hear about?
Well, you know, we're going to have the senators on the Senate Banking Committee, Senator Dodd and Senator Shelby. They'll be negotiating. Their staffs are going to be negotiating. I don't see, at least for the next few weeks, I don't see anything coming out of the Senate Banking Committee. And that's where all the action has to be.
All right, well, we're going to find out more. And I want to thank you, Larry White, from NYU Stern School of Business.